So what did y'all think of the hearing? Did you feel like you got some of your questions answered?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any thoughts you want to share on, like, is that hearing kind of what you thought it would be like, or was it different, or, what's your sense of it?
If you're going to say something, you need to speak up.
Yeah.
Say your mind.
Your mind.
What? It was kind of unusual because they had so many bills on the agenda that day. It was like a super crowded hearing. In fact, I had to keep coming in and out of the hearing room. Hearing room was standing room only, and they actually, because of security reasons, don't let you stand. So I had a guy that works with me taking a chair, and then I was in another hearing because I had another hearing at the same time, and then I'd come in and out. And so they called the bill up at first with Representative Orwell giving her testimony, but then they didn't go to public testimony right then. So then I left and came back, and I had to get permission to come in, and it was that crowded. So by the time the hearing was held, they were limiting people to 90 seconds per testimony, which is not very much, really. So, that kind of gives you a sense of how public policy is made, and they kind of talk about it as a sausage-making process, because it's not necessarily linear or pretty, and the hearing seems like it'll be a big deal, but a lot of the decisions are made outside of that with conversations with legislators and letters that come in and whatnot. But I did sign you guys in support, and there were a lot of people that testified. So it's actually kind of good that we didn't actually testify, because there were so many people on the list to do that. The bill was sent to appropriations, which is the committee that reviews the cost to implement the bill, basically. And the bill had a fiscal note, but it basically said zero, but non-zero, but indeterminate. So what that means is it may cost money, but they don't really know how much. But if it did cost money, it wouldn't be very much. So they held a hearing in appropriations. I signed you guys in also in support. However, nobody testified. Everybody, all of the same advocates who had supported the bill in the other committee supported it in the appropriations committee. And so there's a when you sign in for hearings here, it's all done electronically, and you can choose to sign in support and want to testify, or support and no testimony, or oppose, etc. And then there's an other category. So I signed you guys in support but not to testify. And the bill is up for executive action, which means it'll be voted on today. So today, I guess it's 5 p.m., is fiscal committee cutoff, which means that bills that have a fiscal impact have to be out of this committee in their chamber of origin to continue to be alive. However, there's some exceptions to that, and that's for bills that are necessary to implement the budget. But I do suspect that this bill will keep moving. So because it's bipartisan support, and basically there's been no opposition, it seems to be going pretty well. Now, the one thing that was kind of interesting, I was looking at the, gotta find it again, at the bill summary page, and there was a minority report coming out of the committee. Let me see if I can find it. I have so much stuff open on my computer. David? Yeah, it's 2857.
I'll use something.
It's actually across.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
2857. There's the bill. If you can scroll down, you can see the bill history there. And then on February 2nd, you can see that the underlying committee took action, and there is a majority report and a minority report, and that will show who voted for it and who voted against it. So if you click on minority report, you'll see that Representative Clippert voted against it. And that's likely because he's a law enforcement officer. That's my guess. I haven't spoken to him yet, but my guess is that because he's a law enforcement officer, he probably in general doesn't like to decriminalize certain activities. But he's a Republican, so he's also in the minority, so it's not going to harm the bill. And then if you want to click that off, let's see, you can see now it's noted on February 6th that the executive action is being taken in appropriations. So that's what's happening right now. It's a 10 a.m. hearing, but it will probably go the majority of the day. And you can click off that, David. It'll probably go all day because they have a huge long list of bills to get through before the cutoff tonight. And then the next phase really is that the legislators go to the floor and they vote on bills, so not just in little committee setting, but they're sitting on what's called the floor together. So all 98 House members are in one chamber and all 49 senators are in the other chamber. And they are, their leadership is deciding what bills to bring up to be voted on. And they basically get a list every day when they go to caucus. And caucus is where the parties divide up and they go into a room and they talk about what they think about the bill and whether they want to actually run it. And it's the majority that decides whether a bill even gets on a run list. So if there's a bill that people don't like, and if the majority ends up deciding that they don't care for the bill, they're not going to bring it up for a vote and have it be voted down. They're generally only going to bring up bills that are going to pass. And there are people designated in each caucus to count votes, basically. So, for example, the House Democrats would have a person designated to count votes, literally go from member to member and say, what do you think about this bill? And if they get a majority of members, and in this case, the majorities are really slim, they basically have to get everybody to like a bill in order to actually schedule it for a vote. So it's kind of an interesting process, but that's where we'll be headed next. Although you got to get the bill out of rules too.
So in both committees, right? I mean, it's got to go to appropriations and then go to rules, right?
Yep, it's got to go to rules too. And rules is a funny little committee that they don't actually hear the bills. It's like saying, it's like you all sitting around the table there and Mr. Knudsen would say, you each get to pick a bill that you think should go to the floor. And you have your list of bills that you like, and you just say the bill number and one sentence about the bill, and then the next person has a turn. And basically that's how the rules committee works, is they just go around in a circle and each of them has their list of bills that they want to move to the floor. And that's how they do it. There's no public testimony. There's really rarely any discussion about the bills. So it is a place where a lot of bills die though.
Do they get a certain number of laps of the table? I mean, does everyone get a number of bills that they can pull out of rules and send to the floor, or?
Yeah, so it depends. Every meeting is different, and the rules are different every meeting too. So the Speaker of the House in the House will decide. Okay, today you get. Technically, it takes two polls for a bill to move from the Rules Committee to the floor, and the Speaker might come in and say, "You get 3 polls from." Sheet 1 to sheet 2, meaning you get to take it one step, and you get 2 polls, or you basically get to leapfrog all the way to the floor. And they'll have 2 sets of sheets, basically. One list that were bills that are in stage 1, and another list that are bills that are in stage 2, that are one step closer to the floor. And sometimes they just throw everything out the window and just say, you can take 5 bills directly to the floor. So the Speaker decides, and in the Senate, it's the President of the Senate that decides what the rules are for the day.
But we could assume that those would be like super priority bills, right? I mean, those would be ones that the majority caucus would really want to see go someplace, right?
So in terms of the bills that the members pull, those are just member bills. But the other thing that you're talking about, I believe, are leadership polls.
Okay.
And I probably wasn't super clear, but what the Speaker is deciding is how many bills a member can choose to pull per day, or a rules poll. But there are also leadership polls, And as the session, so this is a short session, and they're going to end up not having time to go to rules. And so what'll happen is all of a sudden the speaker's just going to pull a bunch of rules to the floor, or a bunch of bills to the floor, and they'll call it a leadership poll. And it will happen remotely. There won't even be a meeting. They also have what they call a concurrence calendar. So if a bill went out of committee with no opposition, it's probably going to get on a concurrence calendar where it'll just be voted on really quickly. So any bill that has no opposition and is not going to take up a lot of floor time, they'll often just move those directly to the floor as well. So there's like the rules, and then there's lots of exceptions to the rules, and it's not very linear or easy to follow.
Right. It's just, okay. Huh. So what about 2857? Does that look like it's going to be something?
Well, it hasn't had any opposition. So it's, we got that one, Representative Clipper who decided to vote against it in committee.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, there was no testimony opposing it. There's nobody that signed in not to testify who signed in con. So I think there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of lobbyists working on this bill too for the different social services groups. So I think that there will be momentum to get it to the floor, and it's bipartisan as well. So it has a lot going for it.
Is there any likelihood that once this goes to the other house, that it's going to change? I mean, that if it goes to the Senate, does it look like it's going to ever be changed? I mean, could we expect it to, or?
It could. It depends on, if somebody raises an issue that looks like I'm trying to recall, this has been such a busy week for me. I'm trying to recall there were a lot of issues raised. I'm trying to think if there may be some need for amendments and refinements. And nothing really changed out of committee. So it depends kind of on what feedback they would get at the Senate level. And maybe they would get different feedback that would cause them to want to amend the bill.
When do you think it will go to the Rules Committee?
Well, if it's voted out today, it takes like a day or so to get for the system to work. So probably, Tuesday. So probably by Thursday, it'll show up in rules.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any rules committees aren't scheduled like in advance. What'll happen is I'll get an email that'll say, because I'm on this listserv, and I'll get an email saying there's going to be a rules committee meeting at 12 today, and usually they hold them at noon or at 5 p.m. So will be very little notice. But one of the things that we can do is we can send, if you guys want, we can send a note to legislators asking them to put this bill on their list, and that's generally how it is. You send an email to the legislator and say, please. So, is your class time up already?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry too. The technical stuff. I don't know what happened.
Well, it's going well, so I'll just keep you posted, okay?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.